Okay, my name is Basil Nilamra. I'm a UK qualified chartered accountant and a semi-qualified Indian chartered accountant. I have around 14 years of experience in performing various tax audits for various organizations as well as statutory audit. I was also part of a due diligence review of a US-based company. I have performed management audit for a few of Fortune 500 companies. I'm also teaching for CA, ACCA, and various other professional courses as well as MBA. I'm also handling financial reporting, taxation, and law papers.
Thank you, sir. Let's start the topic, sir.
Uh, can you please permit me to share the screen? Yeah, thank you. Okay, so let's start our session. So before starting, let me introduce my topic. My topic is about administering tax efficiencies. So with this new government, they are more into compliance with taxation. And as you're aware, the current central government is keen on curbing black money and is keen on generating more tax revenue. So before we start our session, I just want you to have a quick understanding about various taxation rules from a layman's point of view. From that point onwards, we'll go in detail and we'll let you know how you have to administer your tax and how you can reduce your taxation by efficient tax planning. So these are a few technical terms used by the Income Tax Act 1961. Income tax used this word previous year to denote financial year and assessment year to denote the year in which a tax is paid or assessed. For example, the current financial year will be ending on March 31, 2021. So the income tax will use the word previous year for that. And the profit, whatever profit you have made in the year ending 31st March 2021, you'll be paying tax in the next year, in the next financial year. If you're a company, normally it is September 30, but government will time to time increase or give you more time to pay. Normally it is September 30, it was extended to November, then to December extra, but normally it is September 30. Now, after understanding this, you have to have a basic idea about the tax rates in the country. So basically, most of our participants are from a companies. So I'm concentrating only on companies taxation. I'm not talking about discussing about any individual taxation or taxation of firm. Our entire discussion will be with respect to taxation of a company. So if it's a domestic company, tax rate is around 30%. And a domestic company, if turnover in previous year 2017-18 is less than 400 crore, it is 25 percentage. And if you are a manufacturing company, a domestic manufacturing company incorporated on or after 1st March 2016, it is 25 percentage. Before a few years, 1 or 2 years, or we can say before this current government was in this NDA government, it was only 30 percentage. Companies Act, we have only two rates, one domestic company and a foreign company. Foreign company, it is 40 percentage then as well as now. But in case of domestic company, it has been changed. The current government want to make everything in India. As you're aware, they have a slogan, Make in India. So to promote that, domestic manufacturing company incorporated on or after 1st March 16, their tax rate is 25%. And domestic company, if they forego some tax benefit, which we'll be discussing today, it is 22% plus a 10% surcharge. And a domestic manufacturing company incorporated recently on or after 1st October 2019, further rates are down, it is 15%, provided they commence manufacturing activity on or before 31st March 2023. The government is giving ample time for manufacturing companies to set up plants and manufacturing units. Until 2023, you have got time. And foreign company it is 40%. And there is a 4% higher education and cess and a few normal surcharge. If your taxable income is more than 1 crore, it is nil. And if your taxable income is between 1 crore to 10 crore, domestic company it is 7%, foreign company 2, and more than 10 crore, there's a surcharge of 12 and 5. So now you understood the basics of taxation. Now we are going into tax administration, my topic. So first of all, you have to know that you know that the current government has introduced lot of provisions to increase income tax payment, and also they have lot of what do you say, make in India, digital payment, etc. So now government is promoting heavily to make in India as well as e-payment. And if you're not complying with those rules and regulations, the fine levied is also big right now. It's huge. And in one case, it is even 300% of tax, which we'll be looking into later. Previously, it was not like that. Now it is a bit more complex, a bit more rigorous, and the income tax administration is also working more to generate more revenue because situation demands such. So you have to know how to administer your taxes properly. There is something known as advance tax. People are of the assumption that we have to pay tax only on July 31 if you're an individual, or if you're a firm or company on September 30. No, it is not like that. There is something known as advance tax, and if you're not paying advance tax, you are also liable to pay interest. So the dates of paying advance tax is this. You have to first calculate your total tax payable. Estimate your tax payable year. It is entirely based on your estimate, how much profit you're going to make this year. And based on that, by 15th June, April, May, June, first quarter, by 15th June, you have to pay 15% of your tax payable. By 15th September, you have to pay 45% of tax payable. And by 15th December, 75% of tax payable. And by 15th March, 100% of your tax payable. Now, what if you don't pay this advance tax? If you pay only on 31st July, if you're an individual, or 30th September, if you're a company, you will have to pay interest. Now, how much is interest? There are one section 234A, which charges interest for delaying in filing income tax return. It is 1% per month. So if you're paying your income tax late, you not only have to pay 1% interest for late payment, you will also have to pay 1% for delaying in your filing income tax return. And on section 234B, if you are not paying at least 90% of your advance tax, you have to pay 1% on your short amount. So actually, if you're making belated payment, you will have to pay 2% interest, one on delaying ITR, and if you're not calculating your advance tax and paying it properly, another 1%. But it is not simple 1%. For example, if you have not paid your 15% tax payable on 15th June, your interest starts from 15th June onwards till you make payment. So from 15th June onwards, if you are making payment in 30th September, that means it will be next financial year. As I told you, previous year is your financial year. Assessment year, you're paying income tax in next year. So if you're not paying on 30th September, 15th June, 15%, they will start calculation from 15th June onwards till you make the payment 1%. It will be a huge amount if you take that 1%. It will be at least 12 to 15 months. So it will be at least 12 to 15% of interest paid unnecessarily, just because you didn't look at this advanced tax provision. Next, this is a new section introduced, section 271, undisclosed income. If you are not disclosing your income and later on the government authorities find it, it may be through a rate or some other way by assessment or something like that. If there is any undisclosed income and government finds it, you will have to pay 100% tax as penalty. You'll have to anyway pay tax on that undisclosed income, plus you will have to pay 100% tax minimum. And maximum penalty is around 300% of your tax. So make sure you are not stealing or you are not concealing any income. Make sure you disclose it. Okay. Now, going in detail, more in detail into our topic. If you're a company, what you have to understand is that income tax things entirely different. There are a lot of inadmissible deduction. It may be an expense, but income tax will not allow such expense. An example is donation. Now let's take an example. If you're a businessman, if you're running a company or any organization, you'll have to pay certain donations, maybe to temple, maybe to mosques, maybe to churches, or some other donations. So whenever you're making a donation, as a businessman, you might be treating it as an expense. And you will show this expense in statement of profit and loss account. But unfortunately, income tax will not allow those donations unless it is paid to approved organization. So donations given to a temple or a church or a mosque or any such situations, it cannot be claimed as an expense as per income tax. So now we are going to discuss those expenses which are actually inadmissible. One such expense, if TDS is not deducted or not deposited within due date, 30% of such expenses will be disallowed. We will look into TDS more in detail later on. So just remember this particular part. If you are not deducting TDS or if you are not depositing TDS, there are various TDS on salary. If you're deducting TDS from your employees and you're not depositing it within the due date, that is due date is normally 7th of next month, or if you're not deducting at all, then your expenses, 30% of your expense will be disallowed by the government. We'll look into detail when I cover TDS. Next, any taxes or penalties you're paying will not be allowed by income tax department. Any taxes or any penalties and any unreasonable amount paid to a relative or a director or a partner. Now, this particular portion, Now, every organization will have a relative. Normally, if you're running a company, you will know that you will have to accommodate a few of your relatives for the sake of relationship, and you'll be giving job to them. But if that particular amount is unreasonable with respect to their qualification, what is unreasonable is not defined anywhere. It is to the satisfaction of income tax officer. If you're paying salary to a normal person, 25,000, but if you're paying 50,000 to your relative, that extra amount, they will say that it is inadmissible. So inadmissible deduction means that they will not allow your expense. If they are not going to allow your expense, your profit will increase and you'll have to pay more tax on it. And this is very important nowadays. Payment in excess of rupees 10,000, other than account pay or electronic mode, it is entirely inadmissible. Because this government want to promote digital payment. Any cash payment, any cash expenses of 10,000, if you're paying salary, if you're paying rent, if you're paying any expenses in excess of 10,000 in cash, excuse me for a moment. There is some technical issues I'm facing with respect to my PowerPoint presentation. Yeah, okay. So if you're a businessman and paying 10,000 in cash, more than 10,000 in cash, the entire expenses will be disallowed. That means your profit will go up and you'll have to pay more tax. Either you'll have to pay on account pay or electronic mode. It can be net banking, it can be PhonePe, it can be Paytm, it can be UPI, it should be Beam app, it should be through an electronic mode. And with respect to transport carriers, instead of 10,000, it is 35,000. That means you can pay up to 35,000 in cash to the delivery, or maybe normally truck people. You can give to the truck driver, transport carriers. Apart from that, you're not supposed to make any payment in excess of 10,000. This is not from an individual point of view. If you're an individual, you can pay any amount of money as in cash. If you're buying a mobile phone, of course you can pay in cash. But discussion is not based on an individual. This is based on a company point of view, business point of view. If you're buying a phone for your business purpose, and you're buying a phone of 35,000 for your business purpose, and you're paying 35,000 in your cash, the entire expenses will be disallowed. That means that 35,000 cannot be shown in your profit and loss account as per income tax. Your profit will go up and you'll have to pay more tax. So be very careful with this particular expense. Now, apart from that, income tax gives you a lot of deductions. Your genuine expenses can be claimed as deductions. There are actually 4 such sections which I want to discuss today. One is section 80G, which deals with donations. As I told you, donations given shall be to an approved person. Donations for a festival or any other things as you give as a businessman, which cannot be shown as an expense in your profit and loss account. Of course, you can show in your profit and loss account when you prepare, but income tax people are going to disallow it. So donation should be paid only to approved organization, and only monetary amount is allowable. That means if you're paying donations in kind, land, building, making certain legacies to certain charitable organizations, all those donations will be disallowed. Only monetary amount is allowed as per income tax, and cash donation of more than 2,000 is again disallowed. So more than 10,000 business expense, but cash donation you can only make up to 2,000. Any cash donation exceeding 2,000 again disallowed. Digital payment, promoting digital payment. And certain donations are 50% deductible and certain donations are 100% deductible. That means even if you're paying to an approved organization, it doesn't mean that you can claim the entire donation as an expense. You might have seen certain receipts of donations, and beneath that donations, there will be something known as this donation is approved by under section 80G. So any approved organization, they have to show on their receipt that these donations are eligible for income tax deduction. So certain are 50% and certain are 100%. The 100% deduction are any contribution to Prime Minister's Relief Fund, National Children Fund, Swachh Bharat Fund newly introduced, or Ganga Fund newly introduced are 100% deductible. Now, section 80G. If you are in Kerala, we are in the eve of elections. So political contributions. Now, political contributions you can claim as deduction. 100% is deductible. There is no ceiling limit. You can make any amount of political contribution. There is no limit. Since they make the law, there is no limit on it. However, payment should be made on other than in cash. Even if you're paying to political party, if you're a businessman, make sure you're paying in mode other than cash. Whether it is practically possible, it's another thing. But as far as income tax is concerned, political contribution should be made only through electronic transfer. Cash payment to political contribution, even if you are paying it, actually paying it, as per as income tax is concerned, they will disallow it. So you'll have to pay more tax on it. Now, this is quite interesting. Do you know that you can save your tax by appointing new employees? Answer is yes. By appointing new employees, you can actually save tax. But there's a catch on it. Now, this is with respect to skill development, Skill India. Skilling in India, making in India, digital payments, skilling and generating new employment. Government is actually providing you tax benefit. Now let's look into what is that tax benefit. There is a new section 35 CCD, which is on skill development. Now by new employees, it doesn't mean appointing any new employee you can claim tax benefit. Expenditure should be incurred on notified skill development project. Not all cases. You can claim 30% deduction. I will take a mathematical problem to understand this. Applicable to assessees liable for tax audit. Not every organization can use this particular section. You have to be liable for tax audit. And tax audit means your sales is more than 100 lakhs, that is 1 crore. And payment has to again be made in account pay check or electronic mode for a notified skill development project. That means if you want your employees to, if you want your certain skills development program to be undertaken for your employees, you can actually get 30% extra deduction on it. We'll look into this in more detail. If you're an existing business, deduction is available only to the new employees. If you are a new business, this is applicable to all the employees. And there are few conditions. Employee's salary should be lower than 25,000 per month. Employee should be covered under Provident Fund Act, and employee should have worked for more than 240 days. In case you're in apparel or leather or footwear business, it is 150 days. Now let me take an example for you to understand this more in detail. So assuming you are a new business, you have appointed a few employees. And you have 3 employees, employee A, employee B, and employee C. Salary of employee A, let's say 20,000. Salary of B, let's say 22,000. And salary of C, let's say it is 15,000. Now you want certain skill for this people to be developed. It can be computer skill. It can be any other skill that has been notified by the government. So there are a lot of organization which has been approved by central government to provide this particular skill development. So you contact them and you give them a project. You want certain skill development, your employees, you want certain skills to be developed for your employees. So if you're making a payment of 5 lakhs to that particular organization for skill development of your employees, so definitely this is your expense. You can claim it as an expense. Okay, that is not the criteria of our discussion. Now, what the government is saying that you can claim an additional 30% as expense. That means your expense as far as income tax is concerned, it is not 5 lakh. It will be 5 lakh plus 30% of 5 lakh 150,000. So in other words, by incurring 5 lakhs of skill development expense, actual cash outflow is only 5 lakh, but you can show an expense of 6,50,000 in income tax return. That means you will save 1,50,000 of your expense. And if you come under 30% tax bracket, you save 45,000 of your income tax. This is actually a new thing developed by this government, skilling your employees. Next one, repayment of loan and advances. This again, as a business person, you have to be very careful about this particular section. Section 269 SS and 269T, if you are accepting certain loans, or if you're accepting certain deposit, or even you're accepting advance in relation to transfer of an immobile property. So this section talks about basically 3 things. One, acceptance of a loan. Second, acceptance of deposit. Or third one, accepting advance in relation to transfer of an immobile property. And if you're accepting other than account pay check or electronic mode, and the sum accepted, that means your loan amount is more than 20,000, then you're liable for penalty. Again, if you see this government wants everything in account pay or electronic mode. They don't want any cash transactions, because as you're aware, cash transactions create lots of black money. It creates an alternative economy altogether. So the government doesn't want any money to be transferred or transacted that cannot be traced. So everything is now in electronic mode. Not only that, if you're repaying this particular loan, or if you're repaying this deposit, or suppose you're repaying that advance, very rarely happen. Advance, normally if that immobile property transaction doesn't take place, no one actually give back the advance. Suppose you're giving back after negotiation. If you're repaying again in cash, other than account pay or electronic mode, again this penalty. Next one, how much is the penalty? 100%. 100% is the penalty. So let's take an example. You are going to sell your property. You are going to sell a property, transfer an immobile property. So the property price, let's assume it is 50 lakhs is the sale consideration. And you took 10% as advance, 5 lakhs. And you collected this advance in cash, gone. You have to pay the entire 5 lakh as penalty. 100% is your penalty. Let's take another example. Suppose you took a loan. I'm not talking a bank loan. You took a loan from someone. Maybe you are a businessman, you just need money. So you went to someone and took a loan of 50,000. Again, it was done in cash. Normally, if you're a business person, all this happens. Because even if government is saying only cash, only electronic payment or account pay check, in practical world, still lots of things happen in cash mode. So suppose you want to make a payment in cash, immediately you went to someone and took a loan of 50,000. If you're taking a loan, accepting a loan, other than in account pay or electronic mode for a sum exceeding 20,000, you are liable to penalty. Again, you will have to pay this entire 50,000 as penalty. So make sure if you're taking a loan or repaying a loan or accepting a deposit or repaying a deposit or accepting an advance, in case of transfer of immovable property, make sure it is below 20,000 if you're accepting cash advance. Otherwise, if income tax knows this, penalty 100%. One more thing, loan, deposit or advance taken from a bank is not covered under this section. Anyway, you're aware, if you're going to take a loan or if you're going to deposit or advance, normally bank will not give you in cash, very rarely nowadays. They will transfer that money into your bank account. So normally there is a transaction. So anyway, loan, deposit or advance taken from a bank is not covered under this particular section. Now, again, now you might be aware of something known as CSR activity, corporate social responsibility. So corporate social responsibility says that you are a responsible citizen and you have to contribute towards the development of the society. So now, again, by just doing good thing, you can again claim certain benefits, particularly in these two cases. Particularly in these two cases. This is not applicable to CSR alone. If you're a businessman or businesswoman, and if you're contributing to a scientific research expenditure related to your business, 100% of your contribution made can be claimed as deduction. But it should be related to your business. For example, Serum Institute, as you're aware, COVID-19, they are trying to make a medicine. So Serum Institute is into scientific research. So any revenue expenditure incurred on scientific research is they can claim 100%. It doesn't end there. So 100%, it's same. Anyway, you can claim it as an expense. So that means you can reduce this entire expense from your profit and loss account. But if you're contributing to an approved research association, a university or college that undertakes scientific research, you can claim 150% deduction. That means if you're paying 1 lakh rupees for this particular organization, you can claim 1,50,000 as an expense, 150% deduction. So by just paying a cash outflow of 1 lakh, you can show your expense at 150,000, 1,50,000. That means if you're a company liable under 30% tax rate, you can get a tax benefit of 15,000. So by contributing to the scientific research community or scientific development of this country, you can actually claim taxation benefit as well as meet your corporate social responsibility. And an approved Indian company for scientific research, you can claim 100%. There are a few other things like, anyway, I want to discuss this particular two things once again. So these are basically 100%. So I'm not focusing on 100%. I'm focusing more on 150%. That is that 150% means you can claim extra 50%. So this is like our cash back. And from a common man's point of view, this is like a cash back. You pay something, you have to incur that, and they are giving you back. So all this 150% is like your cash back. Anyway, you have to contribute CSR activity. Particularly if you're a company, you know that you have to pay 2% of your profit as per Companies Act 2013. So if you're paying that, but if you're contributing this 3 areas, you will get cash back as well. It's not exactly cash back, but like a cash back. Similarly, if you're paying to an approved national laboratory or university or IIT or a specified person who contribute again in scientific research, 150% deduction. And this is recently introduced. A company engaged in biotechnology or producing of any article or thing in 11 schedule, again, you can claim 150%. So in other words, as part of your corporate social responsibility, if you want to promote scientific research in this country and get cash back or tax exemption, do these 3 items. 1, contribute to notified approved research association or contribute to IIT or contribute to an organization involved in biotechnology. You can get 150% deduction. Next one, section 269 ST is all about cash received. Once again, as I told you, this government want everything in digital. Cash receipts of rupees 2 lakh or more from a person or with respect to a transaction, again, it is not allowed. 100% penalty. Now, if you're a business person, be very careful. Let's say you make a sale to Mr. A. The bill amount is 2,50,000 and Mr. A pays in cash. You cannot accept payment from Mr. A for cash because cash sale exceeding 2 lakh is not allowable right now. If you're accepting and if income tax during their assessment comes to know that, you will have to pay 100% as penalty. So whatever amount you receive, this entire 2,50,000 will be paid as your penalty. So the entire amount of your sales will be taken by income tax department. It doesn't end there. Cash receipts of 2 lakh or more from a person or with respect to a transaction. So suppose, can you do like this? Suppose you split this bill into 2. Bill number 1, 2 lakh. Bill number 2, 50,000. No, problem is still not solved. Still you're receiving 2 lakhs cash receipt of 2 lakh or more from a particular person or with respect to a transaction. So even splitting your bill and getting cash receipt from a particular one person doesn't help you to evade from this section. So make sure all your cash receipt in excess of 2 lakh, all your sales in excess of 2 lakhs are only through either through account pay check or through an electronic payment. It can be net banking, it can be Google Pay, it should be through a bank, it should be traceable. Otherwise, you will lose your entire sales. So while I practice, we come across a lot of things. Like people say, yeah.
Sir, I have a question. If you are collecting money in 2 different dates, then what will be the effect?
I mean, you're collecting from 2 different dates, like today is 4th of December and tomorrow is December 5, right? 2 different dates. Okay, so if you're collecting from 2 different dates, again, the same provision will be attracted. Cash receipts of 2 lakh or more from a particular person or with respect to a transaction will be disallowed. But normally what income tax want to try is that, see, now let's take an example. So let's say you are a business person, a genuine business person. You sold on December 4 to a particular customer. Selling to the same customer on December 5, the chances are quite less. So this is basically to the satisfaction of income tax, we say assessing officer. So assessing officer normally December 4 and December 5, they will say that this is not a genuine transaction and they will disallow. Because if you're a business person, normally business person, what happens is that normally all the business will be in credit transaction. Very few business are in cash transactions. Of course, this is not from an individual point of view. Like you go to a grocery shop, pay 5,000 rupees. You go to a grocery shop, the same supermarket, next day buy for 2,000. The next day you go to the same supermarket for 1,000. That you don't have to bother. That you don't have to worry at all. So like suppose you go to a grocery shop on December 4 or a supermarket purchase for 10,000. You pay cash. Next day, you go to a supermarket on December 5, purchase, let's say for 150,000, some other item, pay cash. December 6, pay some other item more than 50,000. There is no issue. Different dates, there is no issue, provided it is a genuine transaction. But if you are trying to, not you means not the customer, if the business is trying, let's take an example. You bought a particular item. That particular item is worth 2,50,000, and you're splitting this particular bill into two, December 4 and December 5. Then this penalty provision will be attracted. Otherwise, no issues. Otherwise, splitting and buying different things on December 4 and December 5 and December 6 simultaneously, no issues. Now, is that clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, again, once again, this is not applicable to banks. And as I said, because banks normally they won't give in cash. And even if bank is giving certain customers in cash, they will be able to trace back to that customer. So this cash deposit, all this cash provisions which we are going to discuss is not applicable to banking sector. Now, Section 269 SU, again recently introduced by the current government. E-payment facilities. Persons or business people whose total turnover is more than 50 crores has to provide facilities for making online payment. That's not a big deal because nowadays, even if you go to a coffee shop, they will have a Google Pay or a swiping machine. But now the government is saying that if you're a person whose your total sale or turnover is more than 50 crore, you have to make facilities for making online payment, swiping card or Google Pay facilities or Beam UPI facilities or net banking facilities, something like that. If that is not the case, this is applicable from 1st January 2020. And there's a catch. If you're not doing this, if you're not, government have given you 1 month, gave 1 month. This was introduced on 1st January 2020. And if your turnover is more than 50 crore and you have not made any provisions for online payment within 1 month, that is from 1st February onwards, you are liable to make a penalty of 5,000 per day. You don't have to go and pay. But if income tax people, when they come for a raid or assessment or some way, they become aware that you have 50 crore turnover and you have not made any facilities for online payment from 1st February onwards, you'll have to pay 5,000 per day. So for example, if government knows that this particular thing on February 2021, that means that you have not made facilities for online payment, then 5,000 from February 2020 into 365, you will have to make a huge amount of penalty, pay a huge amount of penalty. So anyway, this is not a big deal because any business person who's having a turnover of more than 50 crore definitely will have this provision, either a net banking provision or at least a swiping machine will be there. But if you have not installed, make sure you do this as soon as possible. Now we are looking into the most important aspect, TDS. As I told you, if you are not deducting TDS, or if you are not paying TDS, the deducted TDS on time to the government, normally it is 7th of next month, your expense will be disallowed. 30% of your expense will be disallowed. Now, section 192 discusses about TDS on salary. There is no specific rate for TDS on salary because it is entirely depending upon the basic exemption limit. For an individual, you don't have to pay tax up to 2,50,000. And if you're an individual age 60 years above, but less than 80, up to 3 lakhs, it is exempt. And above 80 years of old, if you're senior, super senior citizen, up to 5 lakh, up to 5 lakh, it is exempted. So if you have an employee who's in receipt of 25,000 per month salary, so 25,000 per month into 12, they are in receipt of 3 lakh per annum salary. So they have exceeded this particular exemption limit, assuming the employee is age less than 60. When you pay salary, you have to deduct TDS on salary. Now, since there is no rate allowed, there is no specific rate, business people will have to calculate an average rate. Now, how much is the average rate? Average rate is based on basic exemption limit. So just calculate an amount and deduct. So what if you have not deducting that? If you're an employer, so you have made 3 lakh salary. So I'm just going to increase this salary payment. I'm just going to take it into 50,000 per month. So total salary will be 6 lakh per annum. Assuming the employee is not claiming any other deduction under section 80, employee will be covered under 20% tax bracket. So you'll have to deduct a salary of 20%. It's actually not exactly 20% because there are certain basic exemption limit, etc. So what I'm saying is that if you are an employer not deducting this particular TDS, what will happen? 30% of this expense will be disallowed by the income tax authorities. That means your expense of 1,80,000 will be disallowed by income tax authorities. And if you are covered under 30% tax bracket, that means you will have to pay an extra tax of 54,000. So make sure you deduct TDS on salary. You can contact an HR because they will know that how to calculate this TDS on salary. Next, if TDS is not deducted or deposited, apart from this 30% disallowance, it doesn't end there. Now you have to pay 54,000 based on this expense. You have to pay 54,000 tax extra. It doesn't end there. You have to pay a 1% per month interest as penalty on your TDS amount. That means if you are not paying for entire 12 month, if you are not deducting TDS or you are not deducting the deposited TDS, you'll have to pay 12% per month penalty. Apart from that, you will have to pay a 30% of this particular expense will be disallowed. Next, section 194H is again on TDS on commission. If you're paying commission to a person, it can be anything. Commission agent may be there. If their commission paid exceed 15,000 per annum, it's a very small amount. If your commission payment exceeds 15,000 per annum, you have to deduct 5% TDS. And the rate current now, due to COVID-19 situation, the government has reduced this 5% to 3.75%. This is from 14 May 2020 until 31st March 2021. Maybe government may extend this as well, depending upon the COVID-19 situation or depending upon the request by different trade organization. If PAN is not quoted, 20%. So let's take an example to understand this. Suppose you're paying 20,000 as commission. When you're paying 20,000 in commission, you're not supposed to pay commission of 20,000 to that commission agent. You have to deduct 5% TDS on this. So 5% of 20,000 comes to 1,000. So your ultimate payment should only be 19,000. What should you do with this 1,000? This 1,000 you should deposit on behalf of this person to the income tax department, TDS, on 7th of next month. What if you are not doing this? Two things will happen. Point number one, this commission expense 20,000, 30% of it will be disallowed. That means 6,000 will be disallowed. Disallowed means your profit increases, and if you come under the tax bracket of 30%, you will have to pay 1,800 tax. It doesn't end there. You will have to pay 1% interest on this 1,000, not on this 20,000, on the TDS amount until you pay it. So it will be 100, and if you are not paying into 12 months, 1,200. So a failure to deduct TDS worth 20,000, you're going to lose, you are going to pay a tax of 3,000 extra. So it's almost come to 15% extra tax. And if you're not quoting PAN, you are supposed to deduct 20%. Nowadays, as you're aware, any payment you're asking tax PAN number from whenever you're making a payment. Continuing, section 194I is TDS on rent. Again, rent is a normal expense. All this is on your administration. Anyway, an organization will have to pay rent if it's on a rented premises. But you should know about taxation effect on that. If you're paying rent, you're supposed to deduct 10% of rental payment. Rent on land, rent on building, rent on furniture. You are supposed to deduct 10%. And only the balance 90% should be paid to that building owner. The 10% you have to pay to the income tax department, to the TDS department. Rent on plant, machinery, equipment, it is 2%. And there is a monetary limit. More than 2,40,000 per annum per co-owner. What you have to understand is that income tax is not thinking from the point of view of rent. They are thinking 2,40,000 per co-owner. So let's take two examples to understand this. Your rent is 50,000 per month. 50,000 per month. So 50,000 per month into 12, it will be 6 lakhs. It will be 6 lakhs. So are you liable to deduct TDS? Yes, definitely you are liable to deduct TDS. What if this building was owned by two persons and you're paying rent to this two persons, let's say A and B, half, 3 lakhs to A, 3 lakhs to B. Again, you have to deduct TDS because it is not based on your building. They are not calculating this on building. They are calculating it per owner. So 2,40,000. So basically this per co-owner you can ignore. So basically if your income, if your rental amount is more than 20,000, that is 20,000 into 12 will be 2,40,000. When you pay rent, you will have to deduct TDS if it is rent on building. What if you are not doing that? Same thing will happen. 30% of your rental expense will be disallowed. You'll have to pay more tax on it and 1% interest. It's common for all the TDS, particularly it is same. It is same for all the TDS activity. If you are not deducting TDS or if you are not paying TDS to the government within the due date, you will be liable for disallowance of 30% of that expense and 1% interest on TDS. Now, section 194J TDS on professional fees, technical service, royalty, and director's sitting fee. If you're a company, you will be making certain sitting fees to the directors. So TDS on professional fees, it is rate is 10%. Monetary limit is 30,000 per annum for professional fees and royalty, including technical service. So that means if you are, let's take an example. If you have an auditor or a tax consultant and your auditor is charging 5 lakhs rupees as audit fees, or tax consultants is charging 5 lakhs as tax consultancy fees. When you pay this 5 lakh, you're not supposed to pay 5 lakh to that auditor or tax consultant. You have to deduct 10%, 50,000, and only balance 4,50,000 should be paid. This 50,000 you have to pay into the PAN account of that auditor or tax consultant to the income tax department. What if you are not doing that same thing? Entire 30% will be disallowed. So 1,50,000 of your expense will be disallowed. And if you are under 30,000 bracket, you will have to pay 45,000 extra tax on it. Just for not deducting this 50,000, you are liable to pay 45,000 of income tax extra. So anyway, this is your expense. So make sure you deduct TDS. Otherwise, even if it is your genuine expense, you will be liable to pay more tax because income tax will not allow 30% of such tax, such expense. Now, with respect to director sitting fees, there is no monetary limit. That means even if you're paying 5,000 rupees as director sitting fees, you're supposed to deduct 10% and only pay the balance amount. Now, section 194C, payment to contractors. Again, payment to contractors is your genuine expense, but you have to deduct TDS. Monetary limit is 30,000 per payment or 1 lakh per year. So the most important thing you have to understand is that as a business person, contract includes advertisement as well. So if you are in Kerala, we have a newspaper known as Malayala Manorama. If you are advertising in Manorama and you're paying 50,000 to Malayala Manorama on one particular bill, you have to deduct TDS. And deduct TDS, it is based on if you're paying to an individual, it is 1%. And if you're paying to a corporation other than individual, it can be a partnership firm, it can be a company, you have to deduct 2%. So Malayala Manorama is a company, so you have to deduct 2%. So 2% of 50,000 will be, I think it is 1,000. So you have to pay only 40, you should only pay 49,000. Now, if you have a running account with Manorama, that means you're continuously advertising with Manorama, not one advertisement every month or then and there you're advertising with Manorama, and your advertisement expenses or that particular contract is more than 1 lakh, different bills, 1 lakh per year. Again, you have to deduct TDS, not extra. You have to deduct TDS. So suppose it is 20,000, one bill is 20,000. No need to deduct TDS because it is not 30,000. Another bill is for 25,000. No need to deduct TDS. Another bill is for again 20,000. No need to deduct TDS. Another bill, let's say 25,000. Still no need to deduct TDS. Now comes the catch. Next bill, if it is for another 20,000, now it exceeds more than 1 lakh. 45, 45, 90, now it becomes 1 lakh 10,000. The moment it exceeds 1 lakh, you're liable to start deducting TDS at 2% from this particular contractor. So it is based on individual pay. If you're paying to an individual, 1%. and any others firm or company, you have to deduct 2%. Now, again, due to COVID-19 situation, all the TDS rates has been reduced by the government. Instead of 1%, now it is 0.75%. And instead of 2%, now it is 1.5 from 14th May 2020 till 31st March 2021. As a result of COVID-19, government has given this reduction in TDS rate. Now, this is the most important one. Whether you are an individual or a businessman, but we are focusing on business, a new section. TDS on cash withdrawal from your bank account. Yes, from your bank account, if you're withdrawing from cash. If you're going to an ATM and withdrawing cash, there is TDS. Or if you're walking into a bank and asking and writing a payment slip and withdrawing in cash, there is TDS. This is cash withdrawal, but there's a huge limit. Rate is 2% on cash withdrawal from bank account exceeding 1 crore. So normally no one is going to withdraw this amount on cash more than 1 crore. It's 1 year. It's not one single transaction, 1 year. If a person has not, then again, one more thing. If a person has not filed income tax return for last 3 years, then this threshold limit will be reduced to 20 lakhs at 2%, and cash withdrawal exceeding 1 crore will attract 5%. So if you're a business person, for understanding this, let's take an example. You withdrew 1 crore 50 lakhs then and there from an ATM. Whether it is possible is another question. Or you walk to a bank, gave a paying slip and asked bank, I need cash, and bank gave you in cash. Remember, bank can give in cash. There is no issues, because definitely anything bank will ask your PAN number, etc., etc. So there is a document trail available. So let's say you withdraw 1 crore 50 lakhs from ATM or from cash withdrawal from bank. Now your amount has exceeded more than 1 crore. Now it is 50 lakhs. So on this 50 lakhs, they will deduct. You are supposed to deduct 2%. So cash withdrawal from bank account exceeding 1 crore, automatically bank will start deducting that 2%. This is new because, as I told you, this government want everything in digital. Now, section 194 IA, if you're selling an immovable property, there's a catch. Monetary limit rupees 50 lakhs. It doesn't mean that you cannot pay more than 50 lakh. You can sell a property more than 50 lakh. But once again, or if you're selling a property for more than 50 lakh, that sale proceeds should be made through an account pay check or electronic payment. But not only that, any amount, whether it is an account pay check or an electronic payment, if it is more than 50 lakh, you are liable to deduct TDS at 1%. So let's take an example to understand this. You are going to sell your property 1 crore. Property price is 1 crore. You're going to sell this property to Mr. A. Since it is more than 50 lakh, you're liable to deduct 1% of not excess 1% of 1 crore. So 1% of 1 crore will be 1 lakh. So when you're making payment to Mr. A, you're only supposed to pay 99 lakhs to Mr. A. This 1%, 1 lakh, you are supposed to deduct TDS and deposit into the TDS account or PAN account or income tax account of Mr. A. If you're not doing that, if you're a company, 30% of that will be wiped off. They will say it is not allowable as an expense. And finally, we have reached our time limit and we have reached the end of this session as well. In tax administration, there is one more point. That is tax audit of your accounts, section 44AB. If your sales exceed 100 lakhs in a year, or if you're a professional, it exceeds 50 lakhs in a year, then you're liable to tax audit. You have to get your accounts audited by a chartered accountant. So that is all about tax administration. So before winding up, I want to sum up the most important thing as a business person you should know. One, this government is keen on three things. One, digital payments. They don't want cash transactions. They discourage cash transaction. Digital payments, it's okay. But if you're making payment a genuine business expense more than 10,000 in cash, disallowable. 35,000 in case of transport carrier, digital payment. Next one, cash withdrawal. They don't want you to withdraw in cash. They're asking, why are you withdrawing cash? More than 1 crore. What's the purpose? Why don't you transfer? So if you're withdrawing more than 1 crore in cash from even in an ATM or bank account, the excess payment will be disallowed. You are liable to TDS. It doesn't end there. If you're receiving more than 2 lakh in cash as cash sale, no, you're not supposed to receive more than 2 lakhs from a particular person or on a particular bill. That entire amount received will be disallowed. Penalty, 100% is penalty. They are so keen on making digital payment. And if you are more than 50 crore turnover business, and if you have not installed on by February 2020, make sure you install digital payment facilities as soon as possible. Because if government knows that, you will be liable to fine of 5,000 per day starting from 1st of February. Now they are also more into skilling in India. So if you want to train your employees, now is the best time. There are a lot of approved parties, contact them. The advantage is that if you are skilling and if you're making payment, you're getting benefit, you're getting your employees skilled, it increases their productivity, you will get more profit. Not only that, 30% extra of that expense, extra you can claim as a deduction, extra benefit. And be very careful with TDS. There are a lot of TDS, rent, etc., etc. So if you are not deducting, start deducting, because otherwise your 30% of your expense will be disallowed. And a lot of persons are deducting TDS, but they are not paying on time. If you are not paying on time, same thing will also happen. So this is all about tax administration. I hope you have enjoyed this session. Thank you. So I'm passing the baton to Lindsay ma'am or George Paul sir.
Thank you, sir. Participants, anybody has any doubt, any questions?
I have one doubt.
Yeah.
I am P.O. Luis, working as HOD Finance and CFO of Hindustan Organic Chemicals Limited. We have appointed 2 employees is after retirement as a consultant. Okay. Now we are charging 10% as TDS. That is professional. This professional for whether any professional qualification or technical qualification is required, or other persons also can be appointed like this.
Other persons. That is professional means it doesn't mean they have to be in their professional capacity. So even if you have an accountant, a basic accountant, you can appoint them as an accounts consultant, even if it can be a BCom graduate. Even
okay. Yes, so that was my doubt. Yes.
Yes, there is no professional qualification. It doesn't mean to be a chartered accountant or
yes.
company secretary or an engineer. Even if a diploma holder, you can say that they are under professional capacity.
Yes. One person is a cost accountant, another person is a CA intermediate passed.
Yeah. A CA intermediate, you can claim them as professionals and you have to deduct 10%.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Your class is very good and very clear. Good, excellent clarity is there for the class.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Hope everything is clear what Basil sir shared with us. Thank you, Basil sir. Thank you so much.
I have a question. Sorry, I have a question. Basil, you've been a tax auditor, right? And I was just going through the all the rules, especially with digital currency, with advanced tax, that TDS, this TDS, and in all your audits, what do you see? I mean, are people complying to that? How easy is it to comply to all these rules? Is there some software that helps in decision making? To me, it looks very complex, and I'm a layman, so if you can throw some clarity, it would be helpful.
Okay. One thing, yes, there are a few softwares like Winman. There's a software known as Winman. But this particular software, it requires a bit of conceptual understanding on that software. It will take at least what you say, this software, you can say it is normally it is used by chartered accountants. But business people can also use this Winman, and you can link into your what you say accounts. If you're going to link into your accounts, it will automatically pop up like 10% TDS is there, or you have to deduct this, etc. So there are a few softwares actually available, but it is a bit complicated because you will have to customize this according to your requirement. So as of now, there is no one-on-one like buy software or off-the-shelf software which we can buy, but you can get it customized. Like suppose if you're a businessman, you know that TDS on rent, your normal expense, you will know that. So you can get a consultant or get a software personnel customized according to your need. And next question from you was that there's a very good site which I really advise any layman. That site name is ClearTax. As the name suggests, it is ClearTax. There, the way they present, it's so clear that even a layman can understand most of this particular provisions. And if you want a bit more advanced, there is one more site known as Tax Guru, but I normally don't advise this to layman. I normally advise this to the layman first. You can look into Tax Guru. The advantage of Tax Guru is that they will give different situations. Situation 1, situation 2, situation 3, situation 4, so that you will be able to understand more with respect to. So if you want to have a general idea, ClearTax. If you want to know more into the provision with respect to sold illustrations, practical illustration, I'll advise Tax Guru. And your second question is that are people complying? To be honest, I'm not making any political comment. With this current central government administration, answer is yes. Answer is yes. Actually, I can say that our revenue has actually increased by around 20 to 25%. Because now what people think that people think that why should we go all to all these headaches? Let us be honest. Now people are more aware of it. So let me making any political comment. Was demonetization good or bad? Let acknowledge about it. But the positive thing about demonetization was that people have started taking at least serious. People have started taking care of tax administration very serious, because nowadays we are getting clients. Previously it was like this. Clients will never say anything to us. We go there after 1 year, we start doing the audit, then clients will say that, oh, this happened, that happened, we were not aware of this, they were even not bothered. Whenever new provisions come, we normally give a small posted to our clients, this is the new rules. They normally don't bother. They do their business till income tax catch them in do business. Okay. So right now, yes, people are starting complying with them. They are taking advice of chartered accountants or consultants more as compared to previous governments.
Yeah, good to know. Thank you. If there's no questions, then we'll probably wrap up, today's session. Basil and Lindsay, thank you. Yeah, so we'll end it this way.
Thank you, sir.